Now, Nathan Hale, you may have seen him on TV. He's a very impressive young man. He's a promising young chef who waived his right to anonymity in the hope of giving strength to other victims of sexual abuse. As a child, Nathan, at the age of 14, was abused for 2 years at the hands of his football coach. He's got a point of view on this. Let's hear from him. Nathan, first of all, you're doing a fantastic job, I must say. I saw you on the television. I've read your comments. But just tell the listeners tonight your story, would you?
Basically, what happened was I was 14 at the time. We used to have a kickabout every Wednesday night or any other night of the week with the local lads. And one night, the person in question turned up and asked whether he could play football with us. We thought nothing of it, so we said yes. Then, obviously, I lived with my nan and granddad at the time. The point was my computer broke. We didn't have that much disposable income, so we thought it would be cheaper than going to the shop because he said he could fix computers. Yeah. So originally, he come round the one night to fix the computer. He knew so much stuff about my past with my mom and other things. And obviously my sexuality was a key part in this. He used that to blackmail me to get what he wanted. It started at first with just general touching, rubbing my leg and grabbing my private areas. And then eventually, over the 2 years, it escalated to rape.
Oh, dear.
Then he moved away. I tried to commit suicide just to get away. He then moved places. I had no contact with him. We never heard from him. The last time I heard from him was when I was 18, when I flew back from a work placement in Albufeira, Portugal, where I was met at the airport by 3 police officers, who then escorted me to Steelhouse Police Station, where I was interviewed by child protection officers regarding the case, where they showed me secretly filmed video footage of me and the attempted rape, where I had no clue it had been taken.
And you were 14 at the time that film was taken?
I just turned 15, so it had escalated over a year period.
And he had been charged with this crime, yeah?
He had been charged with this crime months prior to the police contacting me.
Right.
So basically, I put it all behind me over the 2 years that he got out of my life, and then the police come in and blew my whole life apart again.
And how did you feel about that? Were you glad in one way that he was at least being prosecuted?
I was glad in one way, but at the same time I was really reluctant to help the police at first. Purely just because I had got my life back on track. I was a very successful chef. I was on my way to a promising career. I'd rebuilt my life without this man in it.
Yeah.
And to have it blown apart just like that, at the click of a fingers, was really distressing for me. It was really emotional. So at first I was reluctant, but the main reason I then changed my mind was because I knew when he came out of prison that sex offenders register would be there, and he'd have the same life sentence that he gave me. He gave me a life sentence of mental scars. Every time I turn on the TV and see abuse stories, every time I read it in the paper, it all comes back to me. I will have that for the rest of my life. So I feel these people, these predators that prey on these young kids, should have that punishment. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I don't see how anybody could argue with that. We are grateful to you, Nathan Hale, telling us that very disturbing and troubling story, and backing, as I am, the government's stand against the judge's ruling that there ought to be any conditionality on this sex offenders register. It's not hanging them up by their fingernails. It's not torture. It's not even incarceration. It's just that society requires people who are guilty of these heinous crimes, which are much, much more serious than the crimes against property that Jonathan King was talking about, that they should be on a register for the rest of their lives. It doesn't mean that they can't reform themselves, though there is, I think, a lot of evidence that paedophiles in particular never really change. The issue is whether or not they get the opportunity to continue to prey on children. But I'm ready to have an argument about it. If you have a different point of view, well, you better hit the phones. 08717 22 33 44.